What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan. Happy Saturday. Hope you slept well. I mean, that's always the big determinant of energy, right? I didn't sleep particularly well last night, but I've made up for it with an interesting stack that I guess I'll just start with. So look, I'm into simple stuff. Look, I like very complex stacks. They're useful and effective. And I don't know, I mean, you can achieve a variety of different kind of brain states or affect different neurotransmitters with a complex stack that's doing a lot of stuff. But I also like simplicity. And back when I recognized that Nootropics Depot was going to be out of things like Fasiracetam and other racetams, I bought a bunch of the stuff. So I still have here's my Fasiracetam. I have like 10 more of these things. And, I get Cognizin everywhere, but they've got Cognizin, which is citicoline powder. But just citicoline in Fasiracetam has been pretty useful. I'm low dosing it. 20 milligrams of the Fasiracetam and like 70 milligrams of citicoline. It's actually really interesting because citicoline always provides me with a good functional, somewhat stimulated brain. But then Fasiracetam is the balancer, right? It's that kind of methodology we usually talk about where if you got a good stimulant in the mix and a balancer, it equals a good focus and flow state. So that's been a stack that's been very useful for me. Just citicoline and Fasiracetam. Aside from Nootropics Depot, which again, for those of you that just jumped on, I bought this when I realized they were stopping selling it or when they were going to stop selling it. So I have a ton of it, but Nootropics Source also has Fasiracetam. It's a GABA B modulator, GABA B systems modulator, which kind of calms you down. I wouldn't really call it comparable to phenibut, but it's pretty powerful because you don't want to use phenibut. I mean, that's just crazy. As we wait for some people to get in here, let's see what else has been going on. On a recent video where I talked about D-ribose for energy, a very powerful energy compound that I've been taking for years, and I notice my energy is different without it. One of the interesting things about cofactors in terms of energy relating to ATP is that, ribose is involved very directly in the ATP formulation process for energy, but there are cofactors in that process. Like thiamine, B1. B1 is a massively underrated vitamin. I mean, it's getting popularity now in the fatigue kind of Reddit forums, but it's also a necessary cofactor for ribose to formulate ATP. But even in that, there's other necessary cofactors. This is where physiology gets really complex, like magnesium. You need magnesium for thiamine to be able to do its thing, and you need thiamine in the mix to help ATP when you're taking ribose. So I have a client who has been dealing with a pretty, terrible fatigue syndrome, and that regimen there, ribose, thiamine, magnesium, I guess there's other things in the regimen too, like vitamin D, but those primary are really helping this guy to feel better, which is just interesting to me. Getting down into the energy dynamics of your body, like how you are actually producing energy, like how you're converting your glucose into usable energy, and that energy is able to get into the cell. It's something that no one talks about, right? It's like you would find that on like EO Nutrition's channel, this guy who talks about that sort of stuff, right? But as biohackers and nootropics people, we're never really talking about B vitamins, but we should, right? Because they're extremely useful in producing energy. They're necessary. I think it's almost all of the B vitamins, but there are a set of B vitamins that are utterly critical for energy synthesis, and carbohydrate utilization. So I just figured I would discuss that because that's been super interesting. Yesterday, I went and got labs. We did a video on that here. That video, which launched yesterday, is like me taking you to the labs to get the labs with me. I went to Quest yesterday. I got these labs showing you the process, like me getting up and going there and whatever, post the gym, fasting and reluctantly. But importantly, I broke down on that video, which was launched yesterday, and you can find the channel, how I'm using discountedlabs.com, no affiliation, so I don't have an affiliate link there or something. I'm just telling you it's really useful to get labs. They're super cheap. They don't accept insurance because their labs are very cheap. You can get TSH if you're trying to look at thyroid stimulating hormone for $16 or something. Get total testosterone for $36. And that's it. Once you buy it and you schedule with Quest, you should use Quest, unless I guess maybe you have Coordinated Health or some other lab or whatever. Should work the same way. It's that's it. You already purchased the biomarker, so you don't have to pay anything else. That's why I'm doing labs a lot, because it's not only easy, but all things considered, it's cheap. It still costs money, right? But it's cheaper than going through your doc. So that's just been something that people got a lot of utility out of yesterday when I was talking about that, and when I put that post out, and so I'm really happy about that. All right, so it looks like we got some questions. Let's see if I can get to those. Jordan, G Unit, bro. They were like the hard rap groups are like gone these days. It was like G Unit, obviously, Mobb Deep, and like Prodigy like died of sickle cell or something, which is terrible. But like that older school, like really gangster hardcore rap, G Unit is like one of the only groups, man. I listen to a lot of G Unit, dude. All right, so let's get that question on the screen. Gut bacteria progress. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate the $10. You guys want to ask questions, you can ask them for free, and I will try to get to them. But if you super chat them, I will spend more time on it, get it on the screen, and all that good stuff. So Jordan is asking a question about gut bacteria, so let's get into it. Jordan, again, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. So here's the question, folks. Watch your channel for years. Comments on DEA telemedicine regs on TRT. Also interested in hearing a bit more about gut bacteria progress you mentioned last Saturday. Got it. So the DEA telemedicine thing, the only major changes is they're going to make you, if you're on TRT, every 6 months or so, go physically in with a doc for an appointment within which you've got to then have a Skype video call or something with your clinic, a representative or a consultant from your clinic, so that the physical doc in person will do a physical on you and perhaps ask some questions, look at you. I don't know if they're going to ask for labs or not. Probably not. Hopefully not. And then, they have that communication with your clinic so that the physical in place, in location doctor is in, communication at least 6 months out of the year, or at least one time every 6 months with your TRT clinic's consultant or head doctor. And that's just the regulation that the DEA is proposing to put in for certain scheduled compounds, right? And unfortunately, testosterone falls into that category. But what I think they're really targeting is like the unscrupulous, or the, what's the word, like the prescribing of things like Adderall and other drugs that are psychoactive in a non-judicious way, right? The prescribing of those drugs non-judiciously is kind of like a fucking, I don't know, an epidemic in and of itself, right? I think they're very harmful for certain people, depending on the dose and hosts of other physiological factors. So I think that's why they're doing it. I just think, testosterone it's like collateral damage in that particular situation. It's not really a huge deal. All it means is, again, you're going to have a, a physical with a physical doc in location. They're going to have to be on a video chat or something with your consultant from the clinic, and it just makes it less convenient. That's ultimately what's happening. I'm not sure if it's going to finalize and things are going to change, but, everybody that is on TRT is still going to be able to get testosterone. It's not going to inhibit anybody's ability to get it. It's just going to make you jump through more fucking hoops, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. On the gut bacteria. So yeah, I tested my species, all my gut bacteria, and I'm short in bifidobacterium. Now that's pretty common post-COVID. I had COVID in 2021, August 2021, and then I had some additional symptoms thereafter, which were fucked. But ultimately, one of the problems is a histamine degrading gut microbe called bifidobacteria longum, which is depleted in that particular case. In other bifido species, the host of problems with long COVID or whatever you want to call that. But anyway, in testing that, I recognized a drastic reduction in those species. So I began taking human milk oligosaccharides, which you can get supplements for it, but I think the best way to take it is in milk. And so I started buying infant formula. The goal really was to do breast milk, right? And I was like trying that. I'm like, I'm gonna have to find a woman who's lactating, who has a baby, who's producing breast milk, and get her to give me her breast milk. So then there's I would need to look at her blood and disease states and all this kind of. So I didn't do that. So ended up just buying formula, and so far so good. My digestion's certainly better. I'm gonna rerun the tests in like a couple months to see how much bifido has grown. I know it's going to grow, though. The literature is very conclusive. This is how your whole gut microbiome is born. It's breast milk, which makes you make bifidobacterium infantis, and then longum, and then breve, And then that permeates out to the rest of the species. Then when you start eating whole foods, you build a bunch of other gut bacteria. But the root is these bifido species, and you can get it from human milk oligosaccharides. So no negatives. The baby formula that I'm drinking, I drink like a 5-ounce glass every day, also has like some nootropics in it. Interestingly, uridine, citicoline, and inositol, has some other goodies, but it's also enriched with what would be an RDA for an infant of vitamins and minerals. So it's not the whole spectrum, of course. So I still supplement with stuff, but you're getting some vitamins and minerals in it too. Overall better, man. I mean, my digestion, that's one of the things I'm really working on, that I'm in this whole last, almost 2 decades of fussing with nootropics and stuff, I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to my gut. And that's just it's not a good idea. Like, it was largely fine, right? But I'm wanting to make it much better. My digestion's fine, but like, it could be better, right? So like, that's where I'm focusing on now. I had a conversation with a doctor somewhat recently, just shooting the shit. And this woman is like a famous woman who wrote, I forget what the book is called, but it's a book about microbes and your health and whatever. And she just convinced me, like, to look at the microbes and try to do something about it, just optimize them the best way they can. Disease does start in the gut, as far as I can tell, most of it. And so, that's the bottom line. Jordan, appreciate the question. Thanks for the $10. Those of you that have questions, ask them and I will get to them. If you want to super chat them, go for it. We'll take a little more time to get to your question. If you want to ask for free, you can do that too. We'll just spend a little less time on it. So let me see if I can pick out a question here. We got a question about the likelihood of dosing nootropics and developing a mental illness. That's a good one. I'll get that on the screen for you folks. Okay, so Kuran is asking, what's the likelihood of developing a mental illness from nootropics? Recently I saw that Lion's Mane horror stories. Oh, so right. I'm afraid of dosing cognitive enhancers. Yeah, Lion's Mane is what's the word for that? It's really an obscure, some people consider it nootropics, some people don't. It's a very rare, first of all, the effects that people are getting in terms of libido interruption and sexual side effects and potential anhedonia is rare. Secondly, so compared to the rest of the nootropics, racetams, affinils, the energy, bioenergetic, optimizing compounds like Alcar and the antioxidants like alpha-lipoic acid, none of those things have side effects like this, right? You're talking about lion's mane and ashwagandha, so 2 of like 50 cognitive enhancers that we talk about, just to put it in perspective for you. The rest of the stuff doesn't do that kind of stuff, but I'm not saying there isn't a mechanism for this, because I believe lion's mane has some anti-androgenic activity, which could cause some of this in people. When you start fussing with sex hormones in a negative way, you could end up with anhedonia for sure. And I believe it's 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, right? So, that's one of the things that, you probably don't want to mess with. There are better compounds that induce nerve growth factor stimulation, which is what you'd be taking lion's mane for anyway, that don't have the potential for this, or don't have anecdotals that cause people large-scale side effects. Noopept would be one of them, right? So that's what I'd say. In addition to that, look, I'm seeing, there's this one guy who recently has been talking about anhedonia and sexual problems from lion's mane. But if you look at his YouTube history, like all of his videos that he's just as a YouTuber, he's been taking SARMs and steroids for fucking years. And I'm not saying that, this was the cause or something, but ultimately hormones are what seem to go awry in these situations. Whether they look normal or not in the labs means nothing in these particular cases, for the record. But you got people potently binding to the estrogen receptors, blocking them, potently with analogs of testosterone binding to the androgen receptors, and then this happens. It's a culmination of all these things. It's not just the singular compound. But just say that you're really only talking about lion's mane and ashwagandha, and if you're really concerned about it, just don't take those. The rest of the cognitive enhancers, none of them have that ability or, to cause some of these larger scale side effects on sexual function or anhedonia. That's really what classifies like the racetams and all the other stuff we talk about as nootropics, because they're not toxic, they're not liver toxic, they're safe if you're dosing them correctly. I think they should all be cycled, but that's basically that. Good question. Great question. You know, I think if you're that person that's like looking at that, like, first of all, I just told you a whole bunch of stuff you didn't know, right? So now you understand much more the perspective on it, but you know, you need to learn more. Learn more about what you're doing. Try to understand a little bit of the neurochemistry of it. I mean, you can get away with understanding just a little bit of it. The more the better, though, in those particular cases. Okay, so I got a question, looks like, about jumping into nootropics versus checking testosterone first. That's a good point, so let's get that on the screen. Here's that one. Yeah, that's the one, mate. So Comey is asking, hey, should I just jump into nootropics before fixing my testosterone? For energy purposes, very low brain energy test is low. Well, I mean, brain energy and lack of brain energy or brain fog can be caused by so many fucking things, dude. Not the least of which is like a thiamine deficiency or something, in which case thiamine would help, or TTFD, or solbutamine, which is a nootropic. But if you rule all those things out or just want to get started on trying something, then yeah, like nootropics band-aiding energy issues, they'll certainly do that, right? I mean, Alcar is going to make more energy inside of mitochondria, brain cells, and that you'll think Alcar was the savior, but really the issue's still there. Whatever's preventing you from like transporting free fatty acids or substrates to be converted into energy in your brain cells is still there. So you got to look at that and try to figure out what that is through heavy research and experimentation. But, you know, assuming none of those things are happening, yeah, testosterone is going to get you to release more dopamine, more noradrenaline, and that will energize you, right? Just kind of puts you in depending on the dose, a sympathetic place where, you know, your brain is very, very active. You know, it's great for type A personalities, entrepreneurs, productive people, no question about it, man. My test was already high, but I am more productive like on TRT. I'm taking testosterone. I inject 170 milligrams a week now. I'm doing every other day administration intramuscularly, so it's just like easy as pie. And a little bit of pain in the ass managing the bloods and stuff and making sure your estrogen in the right place, because it does have to be managed, you know, whether you're on a low dose or not. I mean, I think for most folks it's going to end up being managed. So yeah, I mean, I would say honestly, look, if your test is low, fix it ASAP, okay? You know, walking around with low testosterone is bad for your cardiovascular health. You're probably having low-grade inflammation that the testosterone would potentially alleviate, or should. You can Google that and go to PubMed and read about the anti-inflammatory properties of testosterone. And generally, though, like bone mineral density, muscle mass, muscle protein synthesis, energy production, those things are all optimized on testosterone, having it high. So whether you want to raise it naturally, go on tier T, whatever. If you're old enough, you know, and you're in that 34 to 38 range or something, you know, you'll get approved instantly. Otherwise, you'll have to jump through some hoops and try harder, maybe go UGL, but you'll ultimately get tests in your hands. That's what I would consider. But I would do both, right? I mean, I would get the test first and raise your test as soon as you can, and then start messing with nootropics thereafter. But in the meantime, if you need to function well, nootropics are just fine. Like Torque by Torque, livecortex.com. That's one of our energy stacks. Cortex is energy too, but it's mostly verbal fluency and some other stuff. Choice is yours. Good question. All right, friends. I got a question from Unite about comparing modafinil with armodafinil. So let's get that on the screen. Thanks so much for the $2. Really appreciate it. Let's go. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's really like comparing triacetyluridine to uridine. So the question is pros and cons of armodafinil versus modafinil. You guys are going to know what I'm going to say, right? Those of you that watch the channel a lot. Modafinil is tried and true. It's well studied. It is predominantly prescribed. I know what dose affects me positively. You know, I get 200 milligram tablets and use a pill cutter and cut it into fourths, and sometimes even cut that fourth too if I want to like microdose it, which is useful sometimes. But I know how it's going to affect me, right? And so to me, armodafinil, which has a more potent absorbability and bioavailability and the necessity for less of it when you take it, so you don't have to take a huge dose of it, 35 to 75 milligrams versus 75 to 200 milligrams of modafinil. That's really the major difference. It's not worth it for me to spend the extra money. Like armodafinil is usually a little more expensive, right? I'm getting it from some of the places in India or whatever. And I like tried and true. I just like that. I'm 16 years into this, so I've tried FL, modafinil, hydrafinil, all these other analogs, and I really don't love them any more than just tried and true modafinil, right? So nothing's new and shiny to me, so I just stick with regular modafinil. Potentially some of the side effects that come along with modafinil from the GABA inhibition and the monoamine raises, all this excessive neurotransmitter firing, would be potentiated with modafinil, because it's a more potent version of the afinil, right? The afinil molecule, if you will. And so that would be a con. Pros, you take less of it, and you don't need a huge dose of it to get a pretty comparable effect. Those would be the pros. Other than that, not much of a difference. Not comparable enough, or not like distinct enough modafinil to be like, oh, I definitely need to choose that over regular modafinil. Good question. Limit Break Ultra's got a question on fasting and mental performance, so let's get that answer. Thanks for the $10. Unite, really appreciate your $2 super chat. Limit Break Ultra, thank you for your super chat as well. Let's get this answered. That's that one. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, what are your thoughts on fasting for mental performance? Currently have 16-hour fasting window that I break around 6 p.m. Any thoughts? Am I missing benefits? Lack of food during the day? Great question on the latter end of your question, because yes, you are missing benefits. You're missing, the paleo and the keto community did a really great job of fooling people into believing that the benefit of not being hungry, or not having to eat 3 meals a day, or even 4 or 5 meals a day if you eat smaller amounts, which is kind of what I'm doing lately, and I really love it. That outweighs or something, that's a major benefit or something. The fact that you can not be hungry a lot and only eat in a certain period of the day. However, it's you always have to go back to real science, and most of the newer age, even older age, because keto and stuff was 10, 12 years ago is when it really became popular. That's when I studied it, got into it, and all this stuff. That's why I know that it's bad for folks largely. That kind of stuff, it's it's very poorly researched, right? So people are making very poorly researched claims. That's an important phrase, poorly researched, about the efficacy of these kind of things. Fasting, useful, induces autophagy, right? Can clear cellular waste and these kinds of things. May help energy, in some cases via turning up stimulant neurotransmitters. That's one of the reasons it helps people have energy, especially keto. But, 3 days, and I know that fasting isn't keto, but you may end up in ketosis in that particular situation. 3 fucking days straight in keto, you've downregulated glucose metabolism, right? Consistent keto, and I'm not saying fasting is keto, but it's in that, it's in that pathway. What people call the keto flu is actually insulin resistance and a lack of ability to deal with carbohydrates. That is a mouse study. You can PubMed that. There are a host of other ones too. So, when you force the body to go into starvation of sorts, it's useful in short periods, not as a lifestyle. Okay. For most people, especially if you're active or go to the gym or whatever, you don't want to be doing that kind of stuff. I know it's popular on the web. I have clients that come to me, oh, I'm on IF, or I have a 4-hour eating. We're just trying to do the most extreme, but they're complaining of energy problems, their hormones look like shit and all this other stuff, or their gut's terrible. Those are my thoughts on 16-hour fasting window. Not terrible. If you feel okay, fine, but you don't want to downregulate, glucose metabolism or energy production. By definition of not eating, you're putting yourself in cellular starvation. So long term, that's a problem. Short term, very useful for brain function and all that kind of stuff. That's what I would say, and people that get brain performance from these types of things, again, you're cranking up catecholamines, and that's predominantly why. It's not because, you're using fat for brain cell mitochondria. You are, but that's not why you feel so good. You're raising other neurotransmitters. It's a giant misnomer. I'm going to do a documentary on that, right? Because I think a lot of people are being harmed by some of these things, and ultimately end up with longer term health problems if they do it extreme enough, If you fuss with it here and there, totally fine, right? You do it extreme enough, you end up with health problems. So I'm going to do like a documentary on that and estrogen at some point soon. Great question. Thank you so much for the $10. Really appreciate it. Comey, if you want another question asked, do a super chat, my friends. I got to get to some of the other questions here. Stack that I took today. Yeah, that's a good question. And I want to quickly explain that because where is that? Oh, it's so simple, guys. The stack that I took today and the stack that I, been somewhat taking lately, but it's like very powerful. Stack I took today was 20 milligrams fasiracetam. Okay, I literally have it here because I took it about 30 minutes ago. I don't even know if you can see it. And 70 milligrams cognizin. This is Citicoline. It's CDP choline. It's just a name brand for cognizin. Look, the idea of the stimulant and the balancer is that stack, right? Fasiracetam working on GABA B system, modulating it, toning, some excitatory neurotransmission down, calming you down a little bit. Citicoline giving you more acetylcholine, opening up dopamine receptor density, and giving you more acetylcholine. Very, very powerful together. So you have this stimulant and then a balancer. So it's like I just feel, I don't know, focused. I feel like I'm talking a little slower, but my brain's working better. It's just really interesting. So that's the stack that I took today. And, I've been taking it, I started taking it a week and a half ago or something. It's like, oh, wow, I haven't fussed with fasiracetam in a little bit. Let me just try to do this here and see how that affects me. And it's just rocking, man. Okay, other questions, guys. If you got questions, ask them. You can super chat them if you want to support the channel or have me spend like more time on it, do a little bit deep dive. If you want to ask free questions, go for it. We just won't spend as much time. Wanted to mention again, where is this? Okay, so all of our courses right now are 40% off livecortex.com. The coupon code is course40. I did this because we got an influx of new people that came from the Vigorous Steve podcast that know a little bit about nootropics, but it's like you'd have to comb through 1,000 of my videos to get what you really need to understand to dose them correctly. So I put them in courses. Like the God course is the course that is the methodology that goes into when I consult people that are paying us $10,000 to formulate their nootropic stacks and stuff. It's high level methodology. Ground Zero is if you're brand new, masterclass if you're a couple years in and want to learn more. Either way, all of the courses are literally 40% off. Coupon code is course40, livecortex.com. I'm really excited about the new Cortex stack. So the old stack is going away and there will be a new stack. There's 1,001 reasons for that. It's not that the old stack is it's like awesome. Actually, people love it. And it sells. So that was difficult for me, right? Because it just sells, it blows off the shelves on Amazon and people love the Cortex stack. It's a great stack. But I also wanted to make a very quick pick-me-up that's also dual targeting the adenosine receptors for wakefulness, but that also has nootropic properties as well. But that can be taken daily. See, Cortex, because the uridine and Citicoline, you should only take it 4 or 5 times a week, right? Because you're working on a brain growth, neurogenesis, and these kind of things. You don't want to do that every day. So I'm making a stack with the new Cortex that's going to be that you can take every day. You can take 5-6 days a week if you want to. It's just predictably going to light you up like Torque. That's what Torque does. Just different, somewhat similar, but otherwise different mechanisms. It's going to be killer. We're working with the product manufacturing lab right now to get really the finalization of some of the administrative BS to get that in production. And then once it's in production, it's like a 2-month lead time. So I guess you're looking at May, June-ish, July at the very latest for the Gen 2 version of Cortex. Going to be sick. In the meantime, Gen 1 is awesome. We got a ton of it, so go buy it, livecortex.com. That stuff is just insane. Let me see if I can pick another question. PBB is asking a question that looks like about Picamillin. So let's get that answered. I think the question is about strength of Picamillin. Picamillin's, it's, what is it, B1 and GABA synthesized in a lab. It's either B1 or B3 and GABA. Might be B3 and GABA. Synthesized in a lab. Like they bond the chemicals together in a lab which makes the GABA cross the fluid-filled sac that protects your brain from like pathogens and stuff and prevents things from getting in there. It's called the blood-brain barrier. But picamilin gets GABA right into the brain via that synthetic bond of the B vitamin and GABA. So the question is, hey, is picamilin stronger or better than aniracetam or phenylpiracetam for social and verbal fluency? Social anxiety? I'm not sure what you're asking here. Picamilin, they're doing way different things. Picamilin's like gonna slow things down, give you more GABA. Not particularly great for productivity unless you're someone who's hyperactive or just like, you need to slow down and then you can focus. Whereas aniracetam, phenylpiracetam are, going to stimulate the stimulating neurotransmitters or bind to acetylcholine nicotinic receptors and influence dopamine concentrations and things like that. Aniracetam is gonna make your memory regions of your brain, release more choline, which is useful for acute memory benefits. Then also aids in memory and induces energy via allosteric modulation of the glutamate receptor, the AMPA receptor, it's a glutamate subtype receptor. And so major difference, right? Whereas picamilin is just giving you brain available GABA. Now, it depends on your state, which is going to help for verbal fluency. You may find picamilin is useful if you're hyperactive, like if your brain works too fast. And that's why you're not verbally fluent, like people who stutter or close to stuttering or whatever. But if that's not an issue for you and you just kind of need to speed things up and function well, and then you're more verbally fluent, then phenylpiracetam, probably aniracetam would be better for that. But yeah, the racetams would work better in that particular case. Great question. Other questions, guys? If you guys got questions, ask them. I will post them on the screen. You can super chat if you'd like to support the channel, and we'll spend more time on your question. You can ask a question for free if you'd also like to do that too. We'll just spend less time on it. And I guess we'll go from there. As I was saying in the beginning, yeah, dude, like I was just talking about, just these two, fasiracetam, citicoline together, low dosing both has been phenomenal for me. I like simple sometimes, I like taking 6 or 7 ingredient stacks that are all targeted really well, but sometimes the simple stuff is like where it's at. Folks. Looks like Adrian is saying something about torque and effects. So if you guys are thinking about getting the torque stack, maybe we can take Adrian's take on it, see what a user thinks here. All right, so the statement, I guess, is bought torque and it hits different. I tried copying the stack in the past and didn't come close to what I felt with torque. Interesting you copied it and didn't feel similar. If you miss one ingredient or the other, like that's the whole thing about putting together nootropic stacks that are really, really useful, is that if you miss one ingredient, like the whole logic behind torque is like everything synergizes really well. Can I get that? Oh yeah, there it is. There's torque. So like trying to take the ingredients by themselves, but in not the exact quantities, like you're not going to get the same result. Yeah, torque is amazing. It's just like, it's wonderful to always have, so long as like the rest of your health is good, something you can take that's going to turn on brain energy. Like, it's just like great. Like when you need it, when you're sitting there like, dude, I really need to be productive, but I'm not feeling like I want to be productive. That's where nootropics can really, really aid in brain energy and performance in those particular cases. Yeah, torque is just awesome. It's been a hit since we launched it, honestly. The formula will never change. Like, it's just going to stay exactly the way that it is. People love it so much. You got a bunch of people on auto ship with torque. So thank you for your feedback. Really appreciate it. It's good to hear that. Remove the test superclass because it's kind of old and dated. It's like every 6 months, my knowledge on everything relating to tests, nootropics, etc., just advances massively. Because, while like your friends are at the bar, I'm reading research papers. I don't like the bar. I like research papers, So my idea of fun is a classy, elegant night out with a nice woman. You know what I mean? Not the bar. So it's like I have a lot of time, aside from doing work, doing research work, and I just love it. So I learn more. And like, it's not that the test superclass had stuff in there that like my new knowledge supersedes. It's that like I have a bunch of new knowledge. So I want to create a new testosterone superclass. But what I did in the meantime is I created a testosterone guide for guys going on TRT. It's called Getting on TRT. It's like everything you need to know to get on TRT. It's at livecortex.com. Pretty awesome though. But yeah, I just keep learning, man. That was like all natural. There were some TRT suggestions in there, HCG, etc. But it was largely that class was, how to raise testosterone naturally. And that's useful for certain men, but I mean, some guys have problems with gonadotropin, production that you can't really fuss with any of the downstream elements of like the testosterone production system in a positive way without fixing the gonadotropin problem, in which case, like, yeah, you got to look into what the hell's causing it. Get into Clomid or something, or ultimately go on TRT. Limit Break Ultra, another question, another super chat, $5. Really appreciate it. Let's get your question answered. Go to the top. All right, cool. Question is, do you have a suggested stack for someone in tech sales? Have to be constantly switching tasks to be on point verbally and mentally to close deals? Yeah, you do. I mean, you're going to want the template for sales is always energy, verbal fluency, and then a balancer, right? So teocrine for energy, 100, 150 milligrams or something. The balancer, you could really pick anything, fasiracetam, picamillan, theanine, but call it theanine, right? 100 to 150 milligrams. And then verbal fluency. You'd want, I mean, the really the best options for verbal fluency are uridine and Noopept together. Now, again, your mileage is going to vary. So I'd low dose them first, like 50 milligrams uridine, 5 milligrams Noopept, move up to 150 milligrams uridine if you absolutely have to. Keep the Noopept at 5 milligrams. Don't dose any more than that. In fact, it's so funny, like when I look at so that would be the stack, right? And that's the general template. Energy, verbal fluency, balancer. Energy, verbal fluency, balancer. Killer for sales. A company hired me to consult their fleet of salespeople. We're done with the consult now. It was a 6-month deal and it was like huge, but yeah, they did, I forget exactly how much it was, but it was close to $1 million per year addition in sales because their salespeople were fucking functioning awesomely just from hiring me to get stacks in the mix. And we were doing that template. So that is what I would suggest. Oh yeah, I was going to say, yeah, with Noopept, like it's so funny. I have all these years of looking at people's experiences with clients and otherwise, and this being my study, not many people respond to higher doses of Noopept. It's disproportionately lower doses. Disproportionately. Something to keep in mind. Really appreciate your questions. Thanks for your super chat. Thanks for the support, my man. Other questions, guys. Picamillas shouldn't really be addictive, no. But again, you're not going to want to like rely on it. Don't take it every day. You really shouldn't rely on anything unless it's built to be taken daily. You have, good maintenance nootropic stacks that are built for daily use, like Torque, teocrine, Alcar as individual compounds, theobromine, fine to take daily, but something like Picamillan you wouldn't want to take every day. Yeah, Limit Break, I think you're going to get, good benefit from that template. Your doses are going to vary, but, that's a good template. Comey is asking if I took modafinil one day, got a good response, didn't work the next day. Could it be fake? Well, how could it be fake? It worked the first day. No, it's your response to it. It's your dose. It's the fact that it's probably depleting usable dopamine. Take Mucuna with it and you probably get an alleviation from that situation. How can it be fake, though, if it affected you positively the first day? Not placebo. A lot of people mistake, like, in Reddit, guy will go, like, oh, I started taking this, and, like, this is the effect that I got, and, like, some dummy goes, placebo. Like, dude, yeah, you're a scientist, bro. I'm sure you are. It's not. All these things are very neuroactively affecting you, right? So, this whole notion of, like, people's reports being placebo with, like, certain nootropics is totally bunk. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, placebo's real. It's just when you're modifying glutamate receptors or something with aniracetam, like there's going to be a cause and effect, and the effect is going to be modified brain performance. All right, guys, if you got questions, ask them. Super chat them if you want to, or you could ask for free. Again, keep in mind, super chats get a lot of, I'll go into like more of a deep dive on the super chat. So have at it. Trying to, oh, there we go. Remember, all of our courses 40% off. Coupon code course40 livecortex.com. I did this because a lot of new people come to the channel. Channel's finally growing again after us being banned several times unfairly. And so a lot of folks are into, in the new side of nootropics. Go get at least masterclass God course if you really want to get advanced. Coupon code is course40. You'll save 40%. Adrian's got a question about phenibut versus F-phenibut that I will try to answer. Thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate the $10, Adrian. Let me get this on the screen, and we'll see if we can do you some justice here, my man. The question is thoughts on F-phenibut versus phenibut. Right now, I take F-phenibut 3, sometimes 4 times every 7 days, 600 milligrams, 280 pounds. Got it. Okay. Well, the F, I guess that's an isomer. I haven't looked into it, honestly, because I hate phenibut. So let me just touch up on exactly what the F isomer is. Oh, is it a fluoridated version? Okay. Potent GABA B receptor agonist. Yeah, we know that. I'm just trying to see about the bioavailability. It's a derivative of phenibut, not approved for clinical use. I'm just trying to find out the mechanism of the F isomer. It looks like it's just more of a has a more potent binding capacity to GABA B. So that's my thought on it, which would technically mean in terms of like, the stuff we usually like to watch out for with benzo or benzomimetics like phenibut, which is withdrawal, that's going to be more potent, thankfully it looks like you're only taking it, 4 times every 7 days, 3, sometimes 4 every 7 days. Well, that's basically 3 or 4 times a week, right? So that's a lot. You're already into that point where if you stop taking it, you're going to run into withdrawals more than likely. Unless you're really, really lucky. The more potent the agonism at the receptor, the more potent the withdrawal is going to be for GABA stuff, benzomimetics. So that's my take on it. I think you really don't want to take it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's just a few compounds that I just think you don't want to touch. Kratom being one of them, phenibut being another. However, in the rare case that you're coming off of benzos and you're looking for an alternative, then maybe that's useful for you. Either way, you're prolonging the eventual work you're going to have to do to upregulate that, receptor site and the GABA system as a whole. That's just going to eventually have to happen unless you want to be taking phenibut for the rest of your life. So that's my take on it. It looks like the binding affinity, so like how potently the chemical binds to the GABA B receptors is stronger. F-phenibut is stronger than regular phenibut at the GABA B receptor. EC50 hour current density evoked by GABA B agonist order phenibut, F-phenibut, yeah, baclofen, right? So it's one step from baclofen. That's fucking very powerful. Or is it greater than baclofen? Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. More potent for sure. Watch out for withdrawals. Okay. And if you get to that point where you're withdrawing from it, you're in a bad place. Fasoracetam will help you in that particular case. Really appreciate your super chat. Thank you for the question. SNC Nutrition. It looks like you try to just do the super chat, but not for the amount that it would have you actually be able to post that thing. But I'll answer your question anyway. Oxytocin sublingual before sex. Yeah, useful for women. I've seen it be useful for women, not necessarily for men. I think oxytocin is very involved in, the sexual cascades. It definitely fires during orgasm and stuff like that. May be prolactogenic, but it also may be anti-prolactogenic, right? It all depends because that feedback system is very tightly knitted. So just something to consider. I do remember with an ex-girlfriend, intranasal oxytocin made her more horny, which was just interesting. Okay, so the bookworm looks like he's asking a question about pycnogenol. Now, pycnogenol is like a brain blood flow enhancing compound, if I remember correctly. I haven't dosed it in a while. It became popular by this dude named Jesse who built a stack called Mitogen, and then what was the other stack that he built? Nexus. Yeah, it was an aniracetam-centered stack that had pycnogenol in it. And yeah, brain blood flow enhancer, basically. Pycnogenol, 300 milligrams, greatly increases my reading and auditory processing speed. Wow. Would adding in piracetam or vinpocetine be problematic? Probably not, but it would be synergistic because there's cerebral blood flow enhancements from piracetam and vinpocetine. You know, and I've dosed that kind of stuff before, like, and gotten interesting results. You just want to, again, start low on the regular piracetam, 800 to 1,000 milligrams. Don't go the whole 4 grams. That's like the typical dose. Just start low and then work your way up, right? Like if you have to, and go from there. Vinpocetine, 10, 20 milligrams, and then work your way up. But yeah, beneficial because they're all aiding in the same thing. However, forcing extra blood flow, like too much blood flow to the brain, may not be necessarily good. And I mean, the side effects run the gamut. You know, in that particular case, you get lightheaded or something like that. So just be wary of that, kind of monitor. And that's why I think you should start low. But if all other things are correct and you need the extra blood flow optimization, adding piracetam and vinpocetine to pycnogenol is not, you know, harmful and should be a good thing. That's interesting that you're looking into that and discussing that or thinking about it because, yeah, they all synergize. It looks like you've done the research. So kudos. Great question. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. And great question. All right, friends. Let me see what else we got here. Best alcohol substitute nootropic? None. To make you feel confidence. Be a man, have a purpose in life. Don't try to hang out with people that you shouldn't hang out with. Like I was talking to this guy in a consult recently. He was talking about social anxiety. And it's like if the way you remove social anxiety is you be a man, which, you know, its primary objective should be to have a mission or set of missions in life and do those missions, and don't try to fit in with people who are less smart than you. Like, you know, if you're an intellectual and you think and you're just like into life and your brain is working, you're not in that normal sort of like they're in this like droopy sort of zombie sleepy state at the bar and whatever, don't try to fit in with them. You know, social confidence or whatever is about being who you are and then finding people that are like you and or just being proud of who you are. There's a question about post-finasteride syndrome that I would like to answer here, so I will get to that. I gotta move that over. So post-finasteride syndrome is a syndrome of deranged sexual function post taking finasteride, which is a DHT inhibitor. The whole purpose of finasteride is to prevent you from losing hair if you have male pattern baldness or if you're on supraphysiological doses of androgens. And I believe it's a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, right? So it's preventing DHT conversion. Look, I mean, DHT is the most active androgen at the receptor sites, at the androgen receptor sites. So, you know, when you're lacking DHT, it's not binding to the receptor sites. Now, like, Vigorous Steve would be a great person to ask this question to, because I believe there is pro-estrogen activity when DHT is not in the mix, right? And what a lot of people don't know, especially these guys that are pro-estrogen and whatever, is chronic exposure to estrogen at high levels does a lot of fucked up things, not the least of which is make your lactotropes get out of control producing prolactin, which is going to give you hyperprolactinemia, and that's going to inhibit your sexual function vascularly and otherwise. But also, when you're a baby and you're growing up, it's like the sex hormones determine like your sexual orientation, right? They ultimately end up, you know, all the way down to like how your junk grows, you know, in which direction and whatever. Like a guy's junk is exposed to estrogen very early on, it literally stunts the growth of it, you know. And if a female baby is exposed to androgens at a high level, then I don't know what kinds of things will happen, but it's not good. So it's like, in the brain and elsewhere, estrogen has a very potent kind of, demasculinizing, if that's a phrase, basically just like counters your masculinity. And so if you're if without DHT you got high estrogen loads and or you were chronically exposed to high estrogen loads, then yeah, you have a lot of issues that you have to deal with. Not the least of which, in the case of post-finasteride syndrome and erectile dysfunction, is vascular problems in the penis. Okay, you got to look into estrogen receptors in the corpus cavernosa. It's a smooth muscle of your junk, and the estrogen receptors that are intertwined with the male penis, right? And you have chronic binding to those receptors. That's in part what is problematic in these types of cases, right? But that's too general question, right? So like, I mean, that would be, something for either a consult or whatever, if you actually had that from taking finasteride. Ultimately, I think there are a lot of things that guys can do to stave off hair loss as they age, or if they have genetic MPB, or if they're taking super physiological levels of androgens. And, like red light therapy, photobiomodulation, there are caps. They're a little pricey, $400 or $500, and that does suck. But, the literature on it is pretty clear. You shine infrared red on your head, then it helps your scalp. But there's hosts of other really cool things that you can do. SNC Nutrition looks like has a question about procrastination and focus, but not raising blood pressure. Well, let me get that question on the screen. It's a little general of a question because I don't know your situation. Procrastination is usually a byproduct of just like not feeling like you have the brain to do what you're doing. It's not that you're a lazy asshole. People always like, oh, I procrastinate. Like, what's wrong with me? If you were functioning awesomely, you wouldn't procrastinate. You would not. Our general tendency as human beings, especially men, is to be assertive and active, right? And so if you're not assertive and active all the time or as much as possible, something's inhibiting your energy, right? To be that. And that could be testosterone. I mean, sure. I would look at your testosterone levels first and foremost, right? Secondly, any nootropic, modafinil, obviously, Alcar, teocrine, theobromine, uridine, citicoline, bromantane, tyrosine, phenylalanine, Noopept, etc. Like it's hard to pick exactly what's going to affect you positively in this regard relating to your situation, right? You kind of have to trial and error it. But a good bet would be like give yourself brain energy and try to make things work a little better. So teocrine, right? It's a methylxanthine that will work on wakefulness, and something like aniracetam, low dose, 300 to 500 milligrams. Eat some eggs for your choline source, and you should be fine. And that would probably help in that situation. Really appreciate the $5. Thank you so much for the question. Taryn Sets. Am I saying that right? Did I do good? Thank you so much for the $5. Really appreciate it. I don't know if you had a question, but if you're just donating, totally awesome. Really appreciate it. I've never heard of modafinil causing infertility. Vigorous Steve did mention that there's some sort of fertility interaction there. I don't know if that's at the Sertoli cell level, which is like where your sperm is made in your testicles, or not. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the mechanism is there. If there's something really concerning. It's a good question though. I'll look into it, if I remember, and try to figure that out in case anyone asks that question again, but I don't know. I don't know what the weather's like where you guys are, but it's raining here in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of cool. Like, I don't know, spring and summer's great, and I love like the vitality of it all. Everyone's alive, awake, chicks are out. It's like fucking great, right? But then I love resets. I love when it rains for a day after that. Like, my cats love it too. We just love to hang out all day, like on rainy days. Like, I'm still productive and doing stuff, but like the vibe is different. You know what I mean? When it's raining. So it's been pouring all day, and that's just so dope. My favorite thing is middle of the night thunderstorms. Even though it disrupts my sleep, my cats and I get up, all of us, like on cue when there's a thunderstorm, and we just listen to it. It's just really cool. Nootropic to increase thyroid hormone. Tyrosine, selenium, iodine would be my suggestion there. All right, guys, any other questions? If you got questions, ask them, post them in the chat. Keep in mind, if you super chat the question, we'll get it on the screen and give it, kind of a deep dive. Otherwise, as I said earlier, our courses right now are all 40% off. Those of you new to Nootropics, this would be the opportunity to get either God Course Masterclass or Ground Zero. Ground Zero is if you're brand new, if you want to like learn all the stuff that we're talking about, if it's confusing you and you're like, well, I don't even know what this is. Like you say things implying that I know this or that. Totally get it. So that's why you should get Ground Zero if you're brand new. Masterclass if you're a couple years in but want to get better. God Course if you want to get to the 10-year, 15-year mark. Coupon code is course40. That'll save you 40% off on all the courses. Also applies to the TRT guide too, which you can find at livecortex.com. Quickly, we'll address the question on kratom because we've been talking about it a lot lately, and apparently this user hasn't seen any of those videos, so I will address it. Thoughts on kratom? Terrible compound to take. Terrible compound to take. First of all, you don't want to be like binding to the opioid receptors in a superficial way. It's going to cause withdrawal and a host of other problematic side effects. But, look, the research is very clear, and so are my anecdotals and many other people's anecdotals. I mean, just go to Quitting Kratom on Reddit, the Quitting Kratom subreddit. Read about all the horror stories. You want that for your life? Go for it. I don't suggest it. You're not going to want it. You will hope that you have taken my advice, but also you're going to raise serum prolactin, and probably the mechanism there is upregulation of the lactotropes on your pituitary gland, which is not good, because then that could become a pituitary tumor. And before it becomes a pituitary tumor, it's going to inhibit your luteinizing and follicle stimulating hormones, and they make you make sperm and testosterone. So your hormones are going to tank eventually. Your libido is going to go to shit. Your erection quality is probably going to go to shit. And you might end up with a pituitary tumor. So that's why kratom is terrible. Nothing good about it. And it's my pet peeve that people have been promoting it or something. That's why I did that video about that nootropic reviewer kid. It's like, yeah, I understand you have affiliate links, bro, but you're giving people advice to take things that are going to fuck their lives up. Not smart. Limit Break Ultra, thanks for the $5, man. Appreciate all your super chats, dude. This guy is inquisitive. Asking a question about paraxanthine. Yeah, paraxanthine is a newer, I think metabolically it's like one step after caffeine. I think when you ingest caffeine, it then becomes paraxanthine after some metabolic like processes or something. And it's not a singularly available compound yet. I did check with my product manufacturing facility and they can't get it. Maybe other product manufacturing facilities can, but probably in combination with other compounds like in energy drinks. Like there's a company called Update that makes a product called Update. It's an energy drink and that has paraxanthine in it, but it also has like other nootropics too. So you really don't know what's doing what. So that's kind of the bottom line. I don't know when this is going to be available as a supplement, for people to just buy by itself. I don't know. I don't know why it's not. It could be that no one's really like, I think it should be legal because it's in these drinks, right? Is that no one's making a supplement out of it quite yet. And that could be for many reasons. People have their own supplements that they're dealing with, like us with a new version of Cortex and Torque and whatever, and that whole side of the business, or people just haven't looked into it enough. But yeah, I mean, you can find that, and there's another one called Something IQ. I forget what it is. It's an energy drink or pre-workout or something that has paraxanthine in it. But yeah, it's another methylxanthine that is closer to the endpoint of, binding to the adenosine receptors and inducing wakefulness, closer than caffeine. It's called paraxanthine. Yeah, it's getting a lot of buzz and whatever, and whenever it becomes like, if someone can isolate it in a supplement, it's gonna be popular for sure. Yeah. It's something I have on my list to try to figure out if that's something we can do, but so far I've been unsuccessful in doing that. Great question though. Bookworm has a question about lion's mane. The simple answer to the question of do I think lion's mane should be cycled is yes. It's going to make you make some nerve growth factor, and it's going to be doing a bunch of reparative stuff in your brain. I think it'll also force a little more acetylcholine release. So, you get cognitive benefits from it. There's, again, as we discussed earlier, there's a very small fraction of people that'll get based on their physiology, it's always stuff that's happening leading up to it. I believe that plays a major role, either anhedonia or sexual problems because of it. I believe lion's mane has some activity on 5-alpha reductase, which means you're going to make less DHT basically from your testosterone, which is not great. Let me just confirm that. 5-alpha. Yeah. Lion's mane can reduce DHT. And that, that's, a potent androgen that you don't want to reduce in large quantity unless like you're on supraphysiological levels of test and you have enough DHT and it's nuking your hair follicles, and then, in which case lion's mane might be useful. But other than that, I think it should be cycled, certainly. Anything that's potentiating brain growth, neurogenesis, synaptogenesis, anything like that should probably be cycled. That's just my sense over the years. And I think lion's mane is no different. Yeah, it's the Muscle Tech drink. You got it. Yeah, I would try paraxanthine. I think it would be useful. Question about booze, yo. I can't remember the last time I drank alcohol. Not that I won't drink again. I just don't like how it makes me feel. I really don't. It's like that superficial kind of euphoric whatever, and then after that you're like in withdrawal. Question is, do you drink? No, largely no. What do you do to unwind in social situations? Okay, so multifaceted question. I have drank. I used to drink, and there were periods where I drank tequila every day. Not a lot of it, but I was drinking like what would equate to like 3 shots or something a day. Really should have just been doing 1 shot. I think that has some health properties and some pre-food stimulant, appetite stimulant properties and stuff. It's also, tequila itself like has some antiviral and antifungal properties or whatever. But I mean, it's still ethanol, right? So, I mean, rationalize that how you will. But in my previous relationship, I was with a woman who was an alcoholic. Now, I've also been around alcoholics my whole life, my mother, my father, my brother, and there's nothing good about it, right? I mean, so I've had terrible experiences, and that experience with my previous girlfriend was probably one of the worst. It was one of the worst semi-best times of my life, where like I loved her greatly and I loved her very dearly, and I wanted to help her to have a better life. And be a better person. But, her alcoholism, and then post her drinking, like when she stopped for a few months or whatever, right as we neared the departure of our, whatever we had going on, she was worse, right? And there's a bunch of neurochemistry issues. And I think she had some psychological disorders and a host of other things. So it's like, I just have all negative associations with alcohol. So I don't drink, In addition to that, though, when I did drink, it's just, I know I'm very acutely aware of how I feel. So for 3 or 4 days, I'd be like striving to get back to normal. People that drink somewhat frequently don't recognize this because they're not that in tune with it all. But you're talking about 3 to fucking 4 days, man, before you really are functional again. You can function fine the next day after your hangover subsides. But when you're to the point where you're really back to like a fully great functional physiological state, brain performance and otherwise, you're talking about days, dude. Also, you upregulate aromatase enzymes from booze, right? Just like literature is very clear on that. So that means you're going to, a good bit of your testosterone is going to convert to estrogen faster. Not great. Social situations, again, I am a man on a mission in life, in business and otherwise. I do what I do, and if a woman likes what I do and likes that I'm a assertive guy with my shit together that goes to the gym, great. If she wants me to be a social butterfly that drinks, she can find another person that does that, who's going to be a less optimal man than me. So I don't like, I know that to be true. So there's no lack of confidence, etc. around that. You come to learn, maybe this is an age thing, or maybe it's just like high level man thing or something. I'm not sure, but you come to learn that you don't want to attract the wrong type of women, and the wrong type of women get attracted to you when you're out drinking, right? I mean, I've never met a fucking gem out drinking. Never. You know what I mean? I don't think it's not that it doesn't exist or whatever. I just don't like putting myself in those kind of environments. So I don't have social anxiety because like I know who I am, right? I'm confident about who I am. I do what I do every day. And if a woman wants to get along with that, like, and thinks it's awesome and respects me as a man, fucking come on board, right? Awesome. Otherwise, I don't care. You know, that's just kind of it. As far as other guys go, I don't know, man. It's just, the kind of dude friends that I have go to the gun range and or are business people. You know what I mean? That's it. You know, largely conservative, you know, guy friends. I don't think I have any liberal guy friends. And so, you know, that's basically it. I just think, you know, anyone that doesn't fit who you are, you have no place hanging out with them. So that eliminates social anxiety, because social anxiety in some cases comes from the fact that you're trying to fit in with people who aren't like you because you think it's cool or something, or they're in the clique or whatever. Fuck them all. They're all going to be alcoholics by 40. Trust me. That would be my take on that. Excuse my French, everybody. Guy named his thing YouTube account. All right, YouTube account. Let's answer your question. That's hilarious. I think I have some super chats too, which I'll get to. Just hang tight. Oh, is it that one? Yeah. Our question is, I recently started creatine, but am predisposed to hair loss. Creatine is loosely linked to DHT increase. I'm testing my DHT, free DHT. Thoughts on that? I don't know that there's a connection there. You know, if there is a connection, you want to both back it up in the literature with more than one paper, and then you want to go and back it up with like 10 plus anecdotals. If you can't find that, it's really not a problem. Good question though. Oh, that was your question. Okay, got it. All right, so we got a couple questions here I got to answer. So I have done some content on Icarin, and I have dosed it like judiciously back in the day. And then I dosed it, I want to say like 2 or 3 months ago. And then before that, sparingly. Like, I don't need it, right? But Icarin is a PDE5 inhibitor, so it's like got the same mechanism of action as Viagra, just not as potent, right? So it's erectogenic. It's going to make you have better quality erections, is what I would say. Not overrated at all. Horny goat weed, you don't know the concentration of Icarin that's going to be in the horny goat weed supplement that you get. So you're probably looking at a hit or miss type of situation where you may waste your money or you may not. Depends on how much Icarin is in it. What I would do is go to liftmode.org or liftmode.com, a company called Liftmode, and they sell powder Icarin. It's like 98% pure. And that's what I would use. 100 to 300 milligrams or so for erection purposes, you know, and basically you're just optimizing blood flow. It's not going to help whatever's causing you to have erection issues. If you have erection issues, it's just going to help blood flow. That's like Cialis, right? Whatever. Not going to help the underlying issue, but will give you like manufactured erections. Cialis is an interesting drug. You know, people take it for benign prostate hyperplasia and prostate problems, and obviously erection issues, blood flow issues, and whatever. A lot of guys are taking it to get pumps in the gym and be more vascular and whatever. So interesting stuff. I got a script for tadalafil, but I have like 4 bottles of it just sitting there. I'm having it for a rainy day. I don't know, like in case I want to fuss with it or something. But I mean, Icarin is just fine for those kind of situations. Got a question about water protocols. Not sure I can answer that, but I will try to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for the super chats, guys. Really appreciate your donations to the channel, your inquisitive nature, your questions. All right, let's get this question on the screen. The question is about protocols you found useful for trace minerals and electrolytes. Anything else you would add? Water protocols? Nah, I'm not a specialist in that. Like, I mean, I'm a specialist in understanding how a lack of electrolyte balance will fuss with your cognition for sure, and probably a host of other processes like gut motility. I think it's useful to make sure that you're eating adequate amounts of sodium, that you get, you know, rather adequate amount of potassium with things like bananas and stuff in your diet. Like, just something to be conscious of. Magnesium couldn't state the importance of it enough, right? Just so many processes in terms of energy that are, require magnesium to be in the picture for all those processes to work like really well. Vitamin D, your absorption in part depends on magnesium levels. So magnesium is a very, very important chemical to have in your body. I supplement with magnesium every day, 300 or so glycinate. No, it's citrate, magnesium citrate every day, 300 milligrams, no question. Water protocols. Other than that, I mean, the only thing I have experience with is heavily alkalinized water for GERD, or a condition called LPR, which is GERD that reaches your throat. Heavy alkaline water seems to help that situation by offsetting the pH differences or the pH problem in that particular situation. Other than that, yeah, I used to get this product called Liquid IV. It was called Liquid IV. You can find it on Amazon. They're like little packets of basically sodium and sugar, which are very useful for gym energy. Definitely useful for gym energy and recovery. I think if you start getting to the point where you're, I don't want to call it deficient, but you need more levels of electrolytes, especially sodium, then they'll benefit you massively. Like if you're on any of those, carbohydrate omission diets, well, then you're going to screw up your serum aldosterone, and your salt water balance is going to be all jacked up, in which case you're going to need to supplement with the stuff. So that would be my take on it. Good question. Thank you so much for the super chat. Epic questions, guys. I think we got a lot done. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I appreciate you guys being with me. I have so much more content coming this week, next week, the week after, forever. I appreciate those of you that are newly subscribed, or those of you that are here. Could you please like the stream? Also, just keep in mind on our videos, if you can like the video, it helps like more than you know, for YouTube to suggest it out to other people, to get more views and to get more popularity and all that stuff. So just like, if you're watching it on the TV, just try to hit the like button whenever you can. Again, all our courses are 40% off right now, livecortex.com. Coupon code on that is course40. Course 40. There is the graphic for you. You can use the coupon code 15 now, 15 now. That's pinned as a comment over here in the chat for 15% off either the Torque stack or the Cortex stack. These are powerful nootropic stacks you can find at livecortex.com. My inventions, right? If you think about all that's gone into what I've learned, I put them into my stacks, and you can get that at our website, livecortex.com. Up and coming, I've got, I'm going to have Vigorous Steve back on the channel, but it's going to be him here. So we're going to do a podcast on Cortex Labs channel with Vigorous Steve. I imagine we're going to get into hormones, estrogen, testosterone, DHT, prolactin, but also fertility, like everything related to the male sexual system we're going to get into. Also nootropics, also stimulants. So that's going to be a banger of a collaboration. It'll be like an hour long or so probably here on the channel, and that's going to be early May timeframe. So look forward to Vigorous Steve coming back on the channel. Going to be epic. I hope you guys have a great week. I will probably see you tomorrow. I've been doing a lot more of these reaction videos, right? Which I like. I've done a ton of deep dives on every compound imaginable on the channel, and I'm still going to do deep dives woven into these reactions, like the ones that we recently did where I talked about phenylpiracetam hydrazide. We talked about mechanisms, right? Exactly what it does, and its effect on the dopamine system and all these kind of things. So I'm going to kind of lay back and do some reaction videos over the coming weeks, just something I really like doing and I want to do. So look forward to those. They're going to be epic. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Hope you have a great week, and I will chat with you ASAP.